Hello, I'm Lucy from Bookshanks. Welcome back to our channel. Hope you're having a lovely week. Are you reading something good? Please do let me know in the comments. I read something good this week. I did. It was a good one. It was Aurora by David Koepp. Now, as soon as I saw this, it was like a total auto buy. Koepp is he's a really famous Hollywood screenwriter, if you're into that kind of things. He wrote Jurassic Park, not the book. That was Michael Crichton. He wrote like the screenplay. He's written Mission Impossible. He's written a load of other things that I can't remember right now. And I picked up his debut novel, Cold Storage, not really knowing who he was, about 4 years ago. Oh, is it on the shelf? Oh, there it is, look. Can you see that? Cold Storage. So I picked up Cold Storage about 4 years ago and I absolutely, completely and utterly loved it. It is bonkers. It's pre-pandemic, but it's sort of telling the story of two completely unlikely heroes, security guards in like a warehouse, in a race against time to stop a pandemic of the most revolting order. And it's hilarious and it's disgusting, and it was just end to end completely riotous fun. I reviewed it, I'll link it down below, but I'm not here to review that one. So anyway, when I saw this was coming out, I was like, oh, have to read it, because like 4 years ago, and I can still remember so much of it, and that's kind of rare, isn't it? Like, you remember the way a book made you feel often, or I do, but like the detail kind of escapes me. But anyway, nothing deep and meaningful, totally bonkers fun. So I was kind of hoping that this would be totally bonkers fun as well. And it's not quite as bonkers, and it's not quite as good, but it's still worth reading if you like that sort of thing. It's a good one. So this time, it's kind of like apocalyptic, a little bit dystopian. What happens is there is a massive solar storm, a solar flare, a solar event of some type. And actually, they do explain the science behind it at the beginning. And I've sort of forgotten it, to be honest, but it doesn't really matter because the result is what matters, which is total and utter global blackout. Not just a little blackout, a blackout which is predicted to last years. Everything has gone, absolutely everything. If it was plugged into the wall, if it was live at the time, it is dead as dead could be. And as you would expect, oh, something in my eye, as you would expect, it sort of results in complete societal collapse. There are riots, there's looting, there's death, there's people struggling to survive across the board, and everyone just goes a little bit feral because there's no electricity and therefore pretty much nothing else. And that is sort of the plot of what happens. It follows a group of people as they try to navigate this very dark, slightly terrifying new world. It's set in America, in lots of different parts of America actually. I think we've got Illinois, we've got Silicon Valley, we've got California, we've got lots of different places and lots of people traveling in between as well. And so it gives you sort of like a snapshot of what it would be like in a really like developed Western country. And actually I think the developing countries get the power back first, and there's like this power shift, which is kind of interesting. But we're following several characters in America navigating this new world. Most notably Tom, who is absolutely filthy, stinking rich, and very prepared for this situation and any other situation that could possibly arrive. He's a bit of an end of a worlder, definitely a control freak, but he's filthy, stinking rich, so he thinks he's going to be absolutely fine. And we're also following his sister, Aubrey, who is not filthy, stinking rich and has a really strange relationship with her brother, and has made some terrible choices along the way. And, you know, never feels that she's really met her potential. But there's like a dynamic between them, which you don't really understand at the beginning of the book, but that like pans out as you sort of understand why their relationship is so strained, that sort of like weaves itself into the plot. So they're like the two main characters, but there's a lot of like peripheral characters around them. So we've got Aubrey's ex-husband, who is a complete deadbeat. We've got her ex-stepson, who's brilliant, I liked him a lot, who has chosen to remain living with Aubrey, even though she doesn't really like her either, but she's the less of two evils, because his dad is such a massive, nearly swore then, plonk. Massive plonk. And we've got a few other characters as well. So we've got Tom's family, some people who work for him. We've got Norman, who lives on the same road as Aubrey and who like worked in astronomical things, so knows a little bit about what's going on. And together, you know, you sort of piece together the haves and the have-nots and all that kind of thing that's going on. And I think characters are what Mr. Koepp does better than anything. They are all, like, he just makes these tiny little observations in a really wry way, in a really witty way, but he nails people so quickly. Like, you know these people. I guarantee to you, the traits that he has, like, given you to explain who they are in such, like, concise ways, in such a short space of time, you're like, I know that person. I just guarantee that you know these people, and I love it. It makes them really, really believable. And also, they are all really, 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 really cynical. Like, really cynical. And I like that a lot too. And I think it's quite believable. You know, they are all, yeah, they all look at the world in a certain way, with the exception of Norman, who is totally almost cliched levels of not cynical, in a very Hollywood way, and it balances out, like, yeah, the insane levels of cynicism in everybody else. So they're the characters, that's the plot. Style-wise, I think the cynicism actually is kind of like a style point worth mentioning, because it runs through everything. It runs through the dialogue, it runs through the narrative, it runs through the plot. Like, it's pretty, you know, it's almost a theme. Cynicism's a theme. Actually, dialogue, it's very dialogue heavy style-wise, which I liked, and I think adds to, like, the characters and how well you understand them and the dynamics and all that stuff. But overall, it's very direct, it's very accessible, it's so Hollywood, as you would expect. And yeah, it's pretty simple style-wise. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing crazy going on. A lot of dialogue, and that's about all you need to know, probably. Similarly, there's not a huge amount of, like, thematic stuff going on. You know, it's not a deep and meaningful kind of book. We're looking a little bit, I guess, at, you know, the death of globalization, probably, like how everything has to become super, super local and sort of like rebuilding communities, because you don't know what's going on anywhere, and you've kind of got to, like, find a way to survive in your extreme locality. So there is, like, a little bit that touches upon that. There's a little bit about, like, sibling relationships that come into it, and power dynamics. As the story pans out, we sort of, like, learn what happens between Aubrey and Tom to, like, create this situation where it's not that they don't want anything to do with each other, but you can tell that there's like guilt in there. Like, Tom is trying to give her money and she won't take it, and you don't know why, and sort of like that unraveling. So there is something in there about, like, power dynamics and, you know, rich versus poor. But I mean, we're talking, like, surface level stuff here. It's not, you know, it's not gonna leave everyone profoundly moved. But that's not what it's about. It's Hollywood entertainment. It pure is. And he's just like a total storyteller. It's only his second novel, but obviously he's had a massively long career in writing, and the storytellerness of him, it just, like, oozes through everything. Like, he's just totally, you can just tell it's experience. It's just decades and decades of storytelling experience that just, you know, puts together into a really entertaining story. It's not quite as good as Cold Storage, because why isn't it quite as good as Cold Storage? I think there's a little lull in the plot in the middle, where it loses momentum a little bit. I think all the characters are pretty unlikable, bar Norman, who's lovely. And actually Scott, the stepkid, I like him a lot. You will definitely recognise him. And Aubrey, she's not entirely unlikable, but they all have massive flaws, as all the best characters are. What's my point? I just didn't like engage with them quite to the level of these. Like these guys I proper rooted for. These guys I was like, yeah, it'd be nice if they won, but you know, I'm not on the edge of my seat. And I don't think it was ever like total edge of my seat stuff. And I think Norman was a little bit wasted as well. I was like waiting for Norman with all his scientific extra knowledge to come into the fore, and he didn't really, which was maybe a bit of a shame. But he did still serve his purpose. But, you know, on the whole, I still really liked it. And I would totally, you know, the next book I will buy again. It will be another auto buy. But yeah, I did like it. It's got Stephen King quote on the cover, impossible to put down. And if I was going to liken it to any author, it would totally be Stephen King. It would so totally be Stephen King. I think the style in which it's written, like accessible, that dry, cynical wit running through, dropping the book, it's very Stephen King. Even the plot is quite Stephen King-y. I really can't remember what the actual science was that made the world go bonkers, but yeah, it totally doesn't matter. Anyway, recommended read. Yeah, definitely would recommend. But if you're only going to read one of them, let's go for this one. Although maybe post-pandemic, it might be a bit raw. Who knows? They saved the day in the end, just about. Oh, spoiler. Now, yeah, it's obvious. It's obvious. It's going to be fine. Anyway, would love to know what you're reading if you've read it. Hope you're having a lovely week. I promise I did not just spoil Cold Storage. Please read it anyway. And thanks very much. I'll see you on the other side. Oh, what am I reading now? Do you know what? When I did my TBR, I couldn't remember what this book was called, and I can't remember what it's called now. It's by Emma Straub. This Time Tomorrow. Oh, that might be it. This Time Tomorrow. A million miles away from this, and I'll be back when I've finished reading it. Thanks very much for watching.